It was early in the morning. The sun had just risen to replace the moon. Billy and George were still asleep in their room. But it was Sunday, and Mom would wake them for church pretty soon. They never liked church all that much. The preacher went on and on about God and stuff. Billy would rather play in the brush. George got grounded once for saying such. But if you went to church, then you get to go to Grandma's for lunch, and the boys knew better than to miss out on a potluck. Suddenly, it was time to get up, as they heard a knock on the door. Neither boy could sleep any more. Mom knocked far too loud to ignore. "Are you boys up yet? We leave in 30 minutes. Don't dilly-dally. Especially you, George." They hurried up and got out of bed, getting dressed really fast, brushed their teeth, ran together down the stairs in a flash, ate the breakfast Mom had sat on the table, oatmeal, toast, juice in a glass, then ran out to the car without even needing to be asked. Billy called shotgun. George grumbled about having to sit in the back. It took only a few minutes to get to the church, as it was just down the road. Mom was already in social mode. She asked the boys to sit in the back alone. The gossip began to flow. So the boys snuck off, hoping no one would know. They didn't ask if they could go. If they didn't ask, nobody could tell them no. They made their way outside, ended up playing in the woods beside, found a small trail just 2 people wide, covered in leaves that had dried. Took only a second for both to decide. Ran to the end of the path supplied. Found a place the woods tried to hide, with a tiny graveyard tucked inside. Just a few plots with broken headstones, long forgotten, names unknown, except one grave, which stood on its own, with a giant statue sitting on a throne. The man in the statue sat there alone, but his feet rested on a pile of bones. Billy said to George, "Who do you think it is?" "I don't know, but I sure don't like this. This doesn't look like a place for kids." Billy nodded, but he couldn't resist. Moved as close as he dared to it. And then he noticed there were words at the bottom, written in English. Both boys read the same lines, with exact precision and rhyme. "Here lies the wizard Kron, master of all magic, ruler of all time. Death is temporary, especially mine, for I possess the power of the divine. The voice of children will one day combine to raise me from my grave's confines. I shall only ever truly die when returned to the grave in which I currently lie." All at once, the ground began to shake. The earth around them seemed to quake. The boys tried to run away, but fear or something else held them in place. Terrified looks on each other's face as the dirt from the hole began to be displaced. The boys tried to be brave, but they had accidentally raised a zombie from his grave. The rotting corpse towered over them, began to speak as they were forced to listen. "The time has come. The words have been spoken. Arisen from my slumber I have become. I have waited 300 years for this day. The words to be said precisely the right way. Now that I am here, forever shall I remain to conquer the world once again. But first, I am quite hungry. So I really must say, and I know this might sound a little insane, but would you 2 boys just stay right there and allow me to eat your brains?" The boys immediately began to scream, jumped to their feet and ran for the trees. Surely this must have been a dream. This was crazy, far too extreme. But they needed to come up with a scheme, face this new villain as a team. This had become sort of a theme, meeting magical creatures. At least that's how it seemed. They heard the zombie wizard behind them roar. The path was suddenly no longer there anymore. He chased them around in circles until their legs were sore. Running from a zombie, turns out, is quite the chore. Billy didn't know what to do. But then suddenly the answer dawned on George. If they put him back in his grave once more, his own spell would turn him back to a corpse. Billy and George spoke silently with only their eyes. This wizard was in for a big surprise. Stopped at the edge of the hole, they told their lie, whetted the zombie's appetite. We're too tired to run, so we will comply. We'll wait right here while you come get your prize. Kron was starving, wasn't thinking clearly, accepted their lie sincerely. Oh, I must thank you. Oh, so dearly. I'll try not to make this hurt too severely. Watching him leerily, they ducked as he leapt at them. He grasped at them fiercely, fell back into his own grave eerily. The earth swallowed him, confirming their theory. Something was different, though. The statue was gone. So were the bones. They were no longer where the woods had grown. They stood in the hall at church, alone. How did we get here? Said Billy. George replied, How am I supposed to know? Let's just get back to our spot before Mom sees we're gone and our cover is blown. Billy agreed, snuck back in and sat in their seats, listened to the preacher speak. Maybe they would tell their mother later, but they knew she would never believe. 2 kids accidentally raised a zombie? After beating Dracula and a demon they freed? They weren't that naive. A grounding for that story is all they would receive. So they just sat in their spot quietly, their bodies tired from the feat they'd achieved. Exhausted, they drifted off to sleep, dreaming of zombie wizards and good food to eat.